What if I told you that two people could have the exact same amount of Alzheimer's pathology in their brain, so the same plaque, same tangles, but one functions normally while the other shows severe dementia? And this is happening right now in 80-year-olds who perform like they're 50-year-old. And the secret lies in something that we can all build called cognitive reserve. Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm a doctor of pharmacy and ApoE4 for carriers. I'm also the founder of the Phoenix Community, a platform dedicated to helping ApoE4 carriers like you and me beat the odds and outsmart Alzheimer's. Through my personal journey with ApoE4, I dive deep into the latest research and translate complex findings into, hopefully, clear, actionable insights we can apply today to take control of our brain health. Today, I'm breaking down very interesting findings from the 2025 Alzheimer's Association International Conference, or AIC, that happened in July 2025 on the topic of cognitive reserve and resilience. More than just abstract concepts, these are practical shields against neurodegeneration we can all build today, no matter how old you are, and no matter what profession, no matter what social background you're coming from. What you are about to learn could fundamentally change how you approach brain protection, especially if you're an ApoE4 carrier like me. Because here's what the researchers discovered. Cognitive reserve doesn't just protect our thinking, it protects our mood, our behavior, and even determines whether tau tangles take hold in our brains. So let me start with probably what is the most surprising discovery from this conference. Dr. Gershan Sidhu from the University of Calgary revealed something that changes everything we know about cognitive reserve.
Cognitive reserve is the idea that individuals with more efficient cognitive networks can better compensate for cognitive changes associated with brain damage, pathology, and aging. Cognitive reserve can be strengthened through activities like education, occupation, and other just mentally stimulating activities.
Notice the key word there, efficient. It's not about having more brain cells, right? We're all humans, we all have more or less the same number of brain cells. It's about having better organized neural networks that can reroute signals when damage occurs. Think of it like having multiple routes to get home. If one road is blocked by construction, you take an alternate path. So our brain with high cognitive reserve have developed these alternate neural pathways through years of complex thinking and learning. But here's where it gets fascinating. For the first time, researchers proved that cognitive reserve extends far beyond just protecting our memory and thinking. They studied 450 participants using the Mild Behavioral Impairment Checklist. That is a tool that detects early personality and behavior change that often precede memory loss by years.
We found that our cognitive reserve measure was directly associated with lower odds of neuropsychiatric symptoms. Our moderation analysis further showed that those with a greater cognitive reserve had a weaker relationship between lower hippocampal volume and neuropsychiatric symptoms.
Let me translate this breakthrough. The hippocampus, which is our brain's memory center, typically shrinks about 1 to 2% per year after age 60 and up to 5% annually in people developing Alzheimer's. Normally, as this crucial structure shrinks, people develop anxiety, depression, or agitation. But people with high cognitive reserve don't show these symptoms even with significant hippocampal shrinkage. For us as ApoE4 carriers who often worry about mood changes preceding memory loss, especially when we've seen family members going through that, this is really revolutionary. We are not just protecting our cognition, we are protecting our entire neuropsychiatric well-being through the buffering effect of cognitive reserve. And it's really worth investing time and energy to build that.
Cognitive reserve is a modifiable and clinically relevant construct. We know that cognitive reserve may extend to later life behavior as well as cognition.
Because the word modifiable should really always be music to our ears, unlike our ApoE4 status, which we can't really change. And thank you, mom and dad. Cognitive reserve is something that we can actually build and strengthen through our entire lives, even starting in our 60s or 70s or beyond. So let me introduce you to a group of people who are rewriting the rules of aging. We're called the super Agers. So Dr. Claire Alexander from the Ann Arbor VA healthcare system studied these remarkable individuals who maintain youthful brain function despite their advanced age. And it's really key to learn from these people because we can learn from their habits, their environments, their genes, their diet, and so on. And we can get inspiration from what they do to see what we can apply for ourselves.
There appear to be people who continue to perform well and do not show this typical age-related cognitive decline. We call them super agers. Super agers are specifically defined by being 80 or older with memory performance at least as good as middle-aged adults.
So think about that. These are the people who are in their 80s and 90s scoring as well on memory tests as average 50 to 60-year-olds. Their brain show thicker cortexes, which is the outer layer where most thinking occurs, particularly in areas critical for memory and attention. But what makes them different? The answer might surprise you.
Our previous research found that superagers report having higher quality, warm, and positive relationships with others, and that there is a trend toward greater extroversion.
Social connection that emerges as a superpower. Each meaningful conversation, each shared laugh, each problem solved with friends literally strengthens neural connections. But it goes even deeper than just having friends. Listen to what these superagers are actually doing with their time.
Even anecdotally, from talking to some of our superagers, they are incredibly busy. Their schedules are so packed because they're volunteering. Some of them are doing classes. Some of them are coaching local teams. They're incredibly busy, involved in their communities, and just very social as kind of a whole group.
So these aren't the type of people just sitting on the sideline. They're coaching, they're teaching, they're volunteering, they're staying engaged. They've turned activity and social connection into a lifestyle that protects their brains decade after decade. Each new challenge they tackle, each skill they teach others builds more and more cognitive reserve. This is such a great value that we're trying to build into the Phoenix community and that our members love, right? The more you participate in the community, the more you are teaching what you just read or what you just learned in a YouTube video, the study you just discovered, the more you create this type of connection and use your brain to solve problems, the more you build cognitive reserve. So it means you are not only helping others by sharing all your knowledge within the community, you're also helping yourself. It's really a win-win. And what I'm trying to build within the Phoenix community, and it's in the name, it's a great community of people who are sharing and building momentum and then defeating Alzheimer's altogether. So next, here's where the research takes a very unexpected turn. Dr. Batul Rizvi from UC Davis studied the oldest old people over 90, and they discovered something that challenges our one-size-fits-all approach to brain protection. And if you know me, we hate one-size-fits-all approach.
We found that race and ethnicity moderated the association between education and hippocampal volume, such that higher education was associated with greater hippocampal volume in Black participants, yet with lower hippocampal volume in Latinx participants. Education was not associated with hippocampal volume in Asian or white participants.
So this is profound. The hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped structure deep in our brain that's essential for forming new memories, respond very differently to education based on our cultural and ethnic backgrounds. In Black participants over 90, more education meant hippocampi up to 5% larger on average. But in Latin participants, the opposite occurred. In Asian and white participants, no direct relationship existed between education and the hippocampal size. But before you panic about whether education helps or hurts, here's the crucial insight from studying 277 diverse nonagenarians.
Higher educational attainment is beneficial or protective for episodic memory in the oldest old, and education might be acting through different pathways to support memory in the diverse oldest old, which may be through structural and functional changes even beyond the hippocampus.
Education protects memory across all groups. It just uses different biological routes to get there. Some brains compensate through increased size, others through enhanced efficiency, and still others through better connection between the different regions of your brain. For us as APOE4 carriers, it means our protective strategies might need to be personalized based on our individual backgrounds and characteristics. That's what I've been explaining for the longest time. There's no one size fits all because we're all unique based on our genetics, environment, habits, and preferences. And now we get to one of the most exciting discoveries, tau resistance. Dr. Colin Birkenbill from Harvard and Massachusetts General Hospital explained a phenomenon that could change how we approach prevention. But before that, if you are finding this information valuable and want to stay updated on the latest breakthroughs for APOE4 carriers, make sure to subscribe to this channel. I basically break down new research every week to help you stay ahead of our genetic risk, and hit the bell so you never miss any of my new videos.
Resistance to neocortical tau pathology is often described as someone having low lower than expected neocortical tau burden given their individual characteristics such as amyloid, sex, age, and other characteristics.
In simple terms, tau proteins normally help stabilize our brain cells' internal scaffolding. But in Alzheimer's, they twist into tangles that kill neurons from the inside out. Some people's brain resist these tau tangles even when they have high amyloid plaques, those sticky protein clumps between brain cells. This is especially relevant for us as ApoE4 carriers since we typically accumulate amyloid earlier and in greater amounts. But the most important question is what creates this resistance?
Resistance was associated with age, with education level, with cognitive performance, and also with hippocampal volume. All of these were positive interactions where the higher values also led to a greater resistance.
See, this is really cool because every factor that builds cognitive reserve also builds tau resistance. The researchers used sophisticated machine learning on 1,400 participants to prove this isn't coincidence. And here's the real-world payoff.
Higher resistance was associated with slower cognitive decline over time, and interestingly, despite not seeing a significant difference in the cross-sectional effect of medial temporal tau, we could see a longitudinal effect of medial temporal tau onto resistance, meaning that participants with lower medial temporal tau showed better resistance over time.
The translation, tau resistance isn't just a laboratory finding, it translates directly to slower decline in real life. The medial temporal lobe, which includes the hippocampus and is ground zero for Alzheimer's, show a compounding effect. Keep tau out of this region early and your brain becomes increasingly resistant to tau spreading elsewhere. For us with ApoE4, this suggests that early intervention that prevent tau accumulation could have exponentially protective effects over decades. That's why I keep repeating that you want to get tested, you want to know your tau levels, and you want to act on it as fast and as early as possible. So Dr. Nancy Shen from UC Davis revealed that cognitive protection comes from 3 distinct sources across our entire lifespan, and education is just one of those pieces. Her team harmonized data from CANDLE, which is Kaiser Healthy Aging and Diverse Life Experiences, and STAR, which is the study of healthy aging in African Americans, analyzing 3,000 diverse participants.
We have 3 forms of capital: financial, cultural, and social, across 2 critical life course stages, childhood and adulthood.
So financial capital means economic security. It doesn't necessarily mean wealth, but more freedom from financial stress that literally inflames the brain, as like any other type of stress actually. So cultural capital includes education and intellectual engagements. That's the mental gymnastics that build reserve. Social capital represent our relationship and support network, so the connections that stimulate our social brain region that we covered a bit earlier. And here's what they found inside the ECOG, which is the Everyday Cognition Scale, which measures real-world function like managing medication, finances, and appointments.
Both low childhood and low adulthood financial capital are associated with greater subjective cognitive decline. Only low adulthood cultural capital is associated with worse ECOG. Both low childhood and low adulthood social capital are associated with worse ECOG.
The pattern is so clear. Financial security and social connection throughout life are just as protective as education. Childhood poverty increases dementia risk by 30%, but achieving financial stability in adulthood can partially reverse this. Having a confident, someone you can truly confide in, emerged as powerfully protective at any life stage. So pick up your phone, talk to your best friend. This is great for them, this is great for you, and it's great for your longevity.
Financial, social, and cultural capital across both early and late life play a critical role in shaping SCD.
This is why the community aspect of the Phoenix community is so important to me, because we are also building social capital that directly protects our brains through stress reduction, cognitive stimulation, and emotional support within the community. And I believe the best people to do it with are the people who are on the exact same journey as you and who knows what carrying ApoE4 means because they are the exact same shoes as you. So here's something else that might explain why education works differently for different people, because that is very intriguing and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that. Renelle Bourdage from Erasmus University Medical Center discovered it's not how long you went to school, it's what kind of education you received.
We know that if you are familiar with testing contents and structures, for example, a time test, you can perform perform well on that test. However, if you have no formal education and you've never experienced timed test, you are more likely to perform poorly, and not necessarily because of your actual cognitive ability.
So this explains so much, right? Quality education teaches us how to think systematically, how to organize information hierarchically, and how to approach novel problems. Cognitive skills that create reserve regardless of the specific content learned. It's about developing mental flexibility, not memorizing facts, which kind of sucks for me because I remember my uni days and it was all about learning health textbook by heart and putting it back twice a year in a test.
State of the facilities, whether the actual schooling facilities were upkept, that could be an indicator of a good or poor quality. We also had some participants get quite emotional, expressing that when they were younger, they were of lower income and didn't have access to books.
So you want access to resources, right? Book, quality teaching, good facilities during our formative years that shapes our cognitive reserve for life by establishing robust neural networks during critical developmental windows. But remember, as we learned earlier, cognitive reserve remains modifiable through life. We can always build more through challenging ourselves with new learning, complex problem solving, and novel experiences. Now, maybe a sobering but crucial reality check from Dr. Birkenbill about the limits of cognitive reserve.
The association is actually not clear, and it's not a linear association necessarily. If you look at the progression over time in terms of cognitive resilience or cognitive performance, if you have someone who has reserve or like redundancy based on education, can be a certain tipping point where the redundancy is so decreased by neurodegeneration that the additional education is not helping anymore, and suddenly their cognitive performance plummets rapidly.
This is why continuous building of reserve matters. Think of cognitive reserve like a saving account. It can cover expenses for a while, but if withdrawals exceed deposits, eventually you go broke. The brain compensates remarkably well until about 70% of certain neural pathways are damaged. Then the function drops precipitously. This cognitive cliff happens later in people with more reserve, and it buys precious years of independence.
Understanding the relationship between education and cognitive resilience or resistance therefore also helps us to understand the longitudinal progression of these phenomena and how long we can bank on them before they actually deteriorate.
So for us ApoE4 carriers who may accumulate pathology faster, like amyloid starting in our 40s rather than 60s, this means we need to be even more proactive about continuously building and maintaining our cognitive reserve throughout life. Every year of high cognitive function we maintain is a victory. And when researchers analyze which factors provide the strongest protection, a clear hierarchy emerged from studying cognitive reserve domains.
Education was the strongest in terms of that protective benefit. It was followed by occupation and personal domains.
So education provides the strongest shield. Each year of education reduces dementia risk by about 7%. Occupational complexity comes second. Jobs requiring problem solving, social interaction, or managing others build your reserve continuously. Then personal activities comes third, like hobbies, reading, games, social engagement. And here's the key: they all contribute synergistically. It's not about choosing one. It's about maximizing all three of those for compounded protection. So before we wrap up, in this conference, I want you to understand the scale of evidence we are talking about.
So we took this approach and we applied it to a pooled cohort from the A4 study, ADNI, and the Harvard Aging Brain study. In total, we had 1,400 participants for this study.
The A4 study specifically recruited people at risk for Alzheimer's with elevated amyloid. ADNI, so Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative, is the gold standard for tracking brain change over time. And the Harvard Aging Brain Study follows cognitive aging over decades with detailed brain imaging. These aren't just small, questionable studies, right? They use PET scans, they use MRI imaging, cognitive batteries, and biomarkers.
We harmonized two large and diverse cohorts, Candle and Star. The harmonized sample includes around 3,000 participants with an average age of 74, who are mostly women and are racially and ethnically diverse.
So Candle, Kaiser Healthy Aging and Diverse Life Experience Study, leverages Kaiser's massive health system data, and STAR, that we mentioned before as well, Study of Healthy Aging in African American, addresses historical underrepresentation. Combined, we're looking at evidence from nearly 5,000 participants across multiple major studies, and this is basically consensus, not preliminary findings. Finally, let's talk about something often overlooked: emotional well-being. The Super Ager research using the IH Toolbox Emotion Battery revealed something quite unexpected.
We found no significant differences between super agers and controls on the NIH Toolbox emotion measures. However, the sample as a whole is reporting slightly higher life satisfaction and slightly lower stress, sadness, and facets of anger compared to the general population, about 1/2 to 1 standard deviation above or below the mean.
So both super agers and highly functioning controls showed better emotional well-being than the general population. Lower stress means less cortisol damaging your hippocampus. Less sadness means better sleep and immune function, and reduced anger means lower inflammation because those emotional states create a biochemical environment that protects the brain cells.
I found that our 80-plus-year-old males reported greater levels of instrumental support compared to females, meaning they report higher levels of having people in their network available to help with daily tasks if needed.
Instrumental support is about having people who can drive you to appointments, help with your groceries, or assist with technology, reduces stress and maintains a lot of independence, and Black participants specifically.
Within Black or African American participants, super agers reported slightly lower affective anger, so irritability or frustration. Black super agers may be reporting lower affective fear compared to Black controls.
Then we have emotional regulation, managing anger, fear, and stress. That emerges as another tool in our cognitive protection toolkit. Chronic anger and fear trigger inflammatory cascades that damage neurons. Super agers have mastered emotional equilibrium, protecting their brains through psychological resilience. So in terms of takeaways, the really quick wins you can do to manage your emotions is just to meditate or to journal. These are absolutely free and easy things to do. You have apps on your phone that can help you do that. And there's really no excuse to not leverage these type of tools for not only your long-term brain health, but also your everyday emotional health. Because who wants to always be fearful, angry, or stressed, right? You actually want to reduce that. So it's a double winner in the fact that not only it will increase your overall well-being, but it will always improve your cognitive resilience. And that's the kind of interventions that I completely love and that we explore in the Phoenix community. All those no regrets moves, because at worst, they continue to improve your everyday life, and at best, they actually have a huge impact in preventing Alzheimer's and helping you stay cognitively healthy. And those are the interventions you really want to pour energy and time into because they really pay tenfold or more. All right, to conclude, here's what we've learned. Cognitive reserve isn't just about protecting your memory. It helps you shield your mood, your behavior, and overall brain function through a lot of redundant neuronal pathways. We can build that through education, work, activities. No matter your age, you can keep learning and keep having active social life, and especially through social connection that stimulate those multiple brain regions simultaneously. Super agers show us it's possible to maintain exceptional cognition into our 80s and beyond through active engagement. And while there is a tipping point where reserve can be overwhelmed by pathology, continuous building of reserve throughout life provides our best defense, buying us years or even decades of cognitive health. For us APOE4 carriers, this research offers a roadmap: stay engaged, stay social, keep learning, manage your stress, build reserve across all these domains of life. Our genetic risk doesn't determine our cognitive destiny. Our daily choices do. So join me next week as we dive into more breakthrough research that's changing how we approach brain health. Have a great day.